Happy New Year. After a couple weeks off, not doing a broadcast, Cheryl, Randy, and myself, we're back with you today. So I want to welcome you to this week's episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And every time we have one of these, we want to do something to share information with the listeners that can benefit them in their business. And today is no exception because I came across something a couple weeks ago and I ordered it in and I read through it. And we're going to kind of go through this today. And what we're talking about today, in today's episode, we're going to talk about a company in Charlotte, North Carolina. The name of the company is Morris-Jenkins Heating and Air. And if you live in the Charlotte market area, I can guarantee you have heard of this company. You've heard their jingles. They are one of the premier HVAC and plumbing companies in the United States. So, Brandy, I kind of sent you the outline of what we're going to do today. What you're thinking of what we're going to cover here today in this episode?
I'm excited for it. And I checked out their website and everything and kind of read up a little bit on it. And just the fact that, how they've also grown and changed and now have over 440 employees. It's fascinating to me.
It truly is. And Cheryl, you've heard the jingles. You'll have cold air in your home tonight if it's in the summertime. And if it's in the wintertime, you'll have warm air in your home tonight. And how Mr. Jenkins came up with the way for this to happen because they live by that credence. In other words, if your heating system goes out, Brandy, they're going to have you a new one in tonight and you'll have warm air in your home tonight. So, Cheryl, what you're thinking after living in the Charlotte market area and hearing Mr. Jenkins on television as many times as we have?
I mean, it's kind of like a dishwasher. You always think of Whirlpool or something. Here, if you think of HVAC, you think of Mr. Jenkins. It's kind of like he is the brand as opposed to just being a company.
Right. So as you see, the title of this is Mr. Jenkins Told Me. And this book is written by his son-in-law, who is now the CEO and the president of the company. And to my knowledge, Mr. Jenkins has retired. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have reached out to Mr. Bancroft, and I'm hoping we can get him on here one day before long to do an interview. But these are all the things in this book that Jonathan learned from Mr. Jenkins, because one of the advertising marketing slogans that Morris-Jenkins has had is they have technicians come on in their ads, in their marketing, on their YouTube. I would invite you, if you're listening to this, to go to YouTube and look up Morris-Jenkins Heating and Air. In fact, at one time they had a hired spokesman. His name was Bobby. Cheryl, do you remember Bobby on the ads on television?
You have to. If you lived in the years that we have, it was there and it was always prominent.
It always was. And Bobby in the ads drove truck 17. And him and Mr. Jenkins would be in the truck and coming up with all different kinds of things. But one of the things happened was Bobby decided that he wanted to go to Hollywood and be an actor. And it was actually a commercial made, which was his last one. And Mr. Jenkins gave him a gift of $100,000 for his career. And this is kind of what we're going to be talking about is how did Mr. Jenkins build this culture? How did he build this company? Well, let me give you a little bit of history. As I said today, the company name is Morris-Jenkins Heating and Air, and they've also expanded into the plumbing industry. So Mr. Jenkins is a true entrepreneur. Brandy, he can't fix a heating system. He's not a plumber. He is not a technician. He's not the guy you would want at your house. So there was a company up that Mr. Jenkins bought in 1990, and the name of it was Morris Heating and Air. Started by a guy by the name of Luther Morris in 1958. In fact, Luther installed the first gas pack in the Charlotte market area, but he was a small company, only about 8 people. This story kind of reminds me of the McDonald brothers and how they had a lid on them. But Mr. Jenkins bought the company, and Mr. Jenkins didn't have a lid. Mr. Jenkins went way out of his thinking to do things such as developing an in-house training program And Brandy, he not only has one in-house trainer, he has a team of in-house trainers. Okay.
That's awesome.
It really, really is. And when you look at it, Randy, you've seen me talk about his ads for hiring and how he has stressed diversification in his hiring, such as women can be plumbers, women can be service technicians, came completely out of his thinking. And to be honest with you, and I hope this doesn't come along bad, but his ads don't show all white guys in it. Okay. It's showing true diversification out to the world. So as I went through this, and this is the book here, and again, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to recommend you go to Amazon, order this book. Mr. Jenkins Told Me. It's $12.95. It's only 138 pages, and it's very short chapters. But what it is, it hits the key things that Jonathan learned from Mr. Jenkins. That's why it's entitled What Mr. Jenkins Told Me. Okay. So when you look at it, and some of the chapters here, Cheryl, I sent you the list of chapters. Which chapter intrigued you the most? The mic's off. Mic's off.
I would say 14 intrigued me the most.
Okay, so let's go to chapter 14. Like I said, because that's what I sent them to prepare for this, was the chapters that intrigued them the most. So chapter 14, if we look at this, don't try, Brandy, listen to this carefully, because this is really applying to what we deal with clients. Don't try to correct their weaknesses. Let every player play to their strengths. When I say that, Brandy, what does that mean to you?
I mean, I 100% agree with it. For example, in my own company today, as you know, I help a lot of clients with Service Titan. I had a ton of meetings all day today with clients. And some people have just tiny things they need done on Service Titan. And so I've pulled Madison in to help me with some of that today. So she's actually sitting beside me while we're doing this. And I've got her over there working on some of that stuff because that is her strength. She's actually was one of the very first Service Titan certified administrators. That is not my other CSR strengths. So I think that is very, very true.
It is. I'm going to read the first paragraph. Okay. After he welcomed me to the big leagues, and he's talking about when Jonathan was added as management, Mr. Jenkins told me, focus on each person's strength. I came to understand that after trying unsuccessfully to make people for years or remake them, I think you gain wisdom as you get older and have worked with a lot of people. You cannot take a person's weakness and turn it into a strength. You can't do that. I can't do that. No one can do that. But we try. We try. And really, that's a cruel thing to do to a person. Think about it. Trying to change a person's makeup and behavior is actually cruel to them. What I found is if you look at a person carefully, you'll find their strength. And if you put them in a place where they can use that strength every day, they're happy and they come to work energized. Cheryl, what do you think of that paragraph?
That's what I would love to get through to everybody that I do hiring for.
Yeah.
Because we're always hiring for this position and they get there and it's not their forte. As you know, we're in the chimney industry more than anywhere else. So they try to put them as a cleaner. They're not a cleaner. They'd make a better installer, but let's keep them there. And by doing that, you're number one, not getting 100% from them. Number two, they get miserable and they walk off and you've lost an employee. So if you can move them around, if you have the ability, or if you can at least promise them the position which they're fitted for, it's called the right seat on the bus.
Yeah. And one of the books that I always recommend to clients is the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And one of the things, this is one of the principles of his works in the EOS system that we also utilize in our coaching. But in this, it's talking about people being in the right seat. and finding in people, putting them into the right seat. And often as we look at it, I look at this in our industry. You said a while ago, Brandy or Cheryl, one of you, we concentrate heavily into the chimney and fireplace industries. So when we look at this, many times we want our technicians to be great technicians, and we also want them to be great salespeople. And to be honest with you, in my experience, you can have a great salesperson that's going to be a crappy technician. And you can have a crappy technician and can be a great salesperson. So, Brandy, do you see that? I mean, in your office, we've even talked about how you have people with different behavior patterns and how they deal with different things. I mean, you've got Madison sitting there right now that's able to deal with stuff to assist you. So, you pulled her out of her field and put her into your field. So, do you agree with what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And my mind always goes to like gas technicians because it seems like in our industry, that's what we're always, every company I work with, including my own, we always only have, a couple gas technicians and we always need more. But that takes a very analytical, hands-on technical mindset to do that. Not everyone is cut out for that. So I think when hiring technicians, for example, you have to really assess, are they going to do better on repairs? Maybe they're just an install person. Maybe they are that really love customers, like interacting, and are good at sales. And then seeing, perhaps hopefully they are that technical person that can become a gas technician. But we don't usually hire specifically for a gas technician. We take a look at the team and then see, okay, who would excel at this position.
Yeah, got you covered. And so, same situation. I phrase it this way: if we take a chimney sweep technician, a chimney sweep technician is used to working with a sledgehammer, pry bars, wrecking stuff. And when we go to a gas technician, the gas technician's got to have more finesse. He's got to be able to work with tweezers and fit his hands into very tight spaces and be able to figure out things and be a problem solver and go through the troubleshooting steps. So it's a different personality. Brandy, same question. How often do we see someone that is a great technician, but they cannot serve in a leadership management role? Do you see that as a problem?
I don't see it as a problem. I see it as that then we shouldn't put them in that role. And there's some people that they don't ever want to be in that role. They're not comfortable in that role. I mean, I remember I worked with floor nurses who they had no desire to be the charge nurse or to eventually be the manager. They loved that patient to patient interaction, and that was their strength, and they knew that, and that's where they wanted to stay. So I think it's important to know yourself and then know your employees.
Got you covered. Cheryl, what's your thinking on that?
Well, we're always very, how do you want to say, chasing for that person that can do it all.
Yeah.
They can't. And a lot of times a leader does not want to do, and I call it minutia for lack of a better word. They don't want to do that technical work. But when Brandy was talking about technicality on the gas logs, I think females fit real well into that position because they're used to the small, intricate things. But it's hard to get a female to come out for working in the field a lot of times. We are seeing it more and more. But you've got to work with the person, whether they're a leader, whether they're a salesman, or whether they're just a technician. They all three are important, and they all three have their positionings.
Right. So here's another chapter, and this is one of mine. So I'm going to read this, and Brandy, Cheryl, after that, I'm going to get your thoughts on that. And this is chapter 15. It says, and this is what Mr. Jenkins said: an organization grows only as large as the key people representing it. And the first paragraph is as follows: the first time I heard him say that was in a meeting of the department heads. And he said, an organization grows only as large as the key people representing it. And then he paused and looked at each of us one at a time. After he made eye contact with every one of us, he finished his thought. If each of us hires people bigger than we are, we will become a company of giants. And see, that's often what happens. It's like, Randy, you probably deal with companies and that need outside expertise. It could be in the world, it could be in the world of budgets, it could be in the world of systems, because that's what we're doing is we're helping a lot of companies putting their systems together. And you work with people, and a lot of times you even have an opportunity to review the software that they have and find the holes in the software. Does all this make sense to you about bigger people?
Oh, absolutely. I remember years ago, it's been now, you and I did a podcast, and I think it was titled Smarter Than Me. And the whole premise behind it was how I always try to hire people that are smarter than me. There's a lot of skills I don't have. I hate Excel spreadsheets. I want nothing to do with them. So I want to hire people that know how to do that. If I go to make like some sort of a template, it's going to be in Microsoft Word, and I'm just going to use that little graph table, and it's going to be black and white. So I turn things like that over to Madison, and she puts it in color and makes it really beautiful and pretty. And so we don't want to hire a bunch of us's. We want to hire people that have the skills and the talents that we don't, so that collaboratively we can all get there.
Right. It's just like recently, Denise in your office did 2 job forms for me, okay, for
Yep.
two different questionnaires we were putting together. My expertise is not job forms, okay, and I'm sure it was real easy for Denise to do this, where I would have spent hours and hours on this. And this is what often happens: we get bogged down. So, Cheryl, what's your thought on that chapter?
I like it because, you are, they say, like the 5 most important people that you hang around with. But the thing is, and I have this problem with employees, they don't want people better than them because they're afraid they'll take their job. So people need to quit looking at that and realize you need those important people to help you do your job better, so you both have a job. So it's always hire up, train up. I've never understood that concept of looking for somebody that does just like you or less than you.
Right. See, my idea of a manager is a person that you got to throw a rope out every once in a while. So slow down. You're moving too fast. Rather than a person that I got to throw the rope behind me and lasso them and drag their butt to where we want them to go. Okay. It's a process. It's like our friend Larry Wingate. I can still remember the first time I ever heard a Larry Wingate video. Ken Warren, who's a friend of ours, sent me a link. He said, "You got to listen to this guy. I'd never heard of Larry before this point." And the title of it was, "Do you want to know why your sales suck?" And his answer was, "It's because you suck." And see, that's what we see in progressive owners that understand they're the roadblock. So often we see this, that people are complaining about their employees. But actually, if you look back, is it a leadership issue? Randy, what's your thought on that?
I don't know, because my mind just went to, you're coming here in March to do sales training for my guys, and my mind just went to what their faces are going to look like when you tell them it's because you suck. But that's something that they need to hear, because at this point they do suck in that. They need training, just like we all suck in things until we get extra training and education in it.
Well, that's just like when someone engages my services. They've had to reach this point. In fact, I was talking to somebody earlier today, and it's like the first book I wrote was Chaos to Reinvention, and it was my story. And if you look in this book, I'll even tell you my magic moment in life was when I figured out that it was all my damn fault. Okay. And that's a hard realization to come to. So, Cheryl, what's your thought on what we're talking about here?
Well, I mean, you can realize that you're not at the head of the heap,
Yeah.
and you can't see other people that well. And the thing is, most stuff that goes on, if you look back, you were the treadmill that got it there.
Mhm.
Especially if you have a business that's faltering, it falls downhill and it falls back to you. Did you do what you had to do? No, you sucked.
Yeah. And every time somebody calls me, and Randy, this is probably one of the most things I say over and over. They call me and they've had a problem. And my first question always is, have you got an SOP on that? Have you got an SOP? Because, Brandy, how many times have you heard me say the 3 reasons for every mistake that happens? Have I preached that? It's above nip it in the bud.
It's
With
drilled into everything. Yeah.
it's drilled into everything. But do you agree with my analogy? Is they gotta, if they don't have the systems and they're not holding accountability and their people aren't following the system, it's a leadership issue.
I agree. And I think where people get into trouble is when we say something like, well, if your team's not doing well, it's your fault. I think that people take that to mean like, you may have a person that they are not cut out for this job and they shouldn't be in this position and they are awful. And I think that leaders take that to mean that they should be able to turn them around. No, that doesn't mean that you should be able to turn them around. It means that you should be able to recognize that this is not the correct position for them and you need to let them go.
Right. And in that line, there's another chapter in here that deals with that. And it uses the analogy of a football game. So whenever you see a football team and it's it's 4th down, and there's no way they can make a first down. What do? They punt the ball and give it to the other team for a while. Okay. And that's what you've got to do with people. Sometimes, and this is a hard decision for a lot of people, because it's an emotional decision, especially around Christmas time. Who wants to terminate an employee around Christmas time? But again, I go to Larry Winget. Cheryl, do you remember what Larry used to say about when it was time to terminate someone?
He told us to call him.
Well, but what he said was, you're granting them their freedom, the freedom to go and find something that makes them happy. So Chuck Roydhouse's foot, my favorite term is ECLET, brilliance of success. Find the person with brilliance to solve your need. That should be your reputation as the leader. So again, it's bringing that outside expertise in that has learned how to do that and make your life easier. That's one of the roles of management. It's Brandy, it's just like today. You delegated your needs to Madison. You made a decision. I need Madison to do this. I bet, and probably, would you say that Madison has more patience with this than Brandy does?
Oh, she has way more patience than I do with it. And I have a personal assistant, but she's working on other projects for me. And it goes back to, she hasn't been with us as long. She doesn't know Service Titan as well. She's not a certified administrator yet. And Madison has those talents. Right. And so she was the right person to pull away for the day.
Correct. And that's having the right person. And it's one of the things we promote is you got to have a second string. You never know when your top player is going to go down. Can you imagine a football team trotting on the field and the star quarterback gets sacked and you don't have a quarterback that goes out there? And that's why you've got to build up the second string. But to build up that second string, you got to have the funding to handle it built into your cost. It's a cost of doing business. Is you have this, okay? It's like Chuck Roydhouse that's on here listening to us right now. I always remember when I worked with Chuck, he had a spare truck. He had a fully equipped spare truck ready to rock and roll in case his truck was in an accident. Fully equipped, all the whole 9 yards. This was anticipation of what was going on. So another chapter here that's very interesting is leadership isn't management. Leadership isn't management. So I'm going to read this out. The role of a manager is to turn talent into performance. It's to look at each person individually and then put them in a position where they can work to their strengths. If you put a person in an area where they're strong, you get tremendous performance. But if you try to work on their weaknesses, you get just a little bit of improvement. So the manager's job is to look inwardly and recognize the talents of each individual. A leader's job, on the other hand, is to look outwardly with the employee. The leader's role is to show each person a better future. A leader's message is always, tomorrow is going to be better than today. Everyone has uncertainty about their future. We do. I'm sure we wake up in the mornings wondering what's going to happen today. This is why a good leader will say, hey, here is where we're going, and this is how we're going to get there. In truth, the leader may not know exactly how we're going to get there, but if he can paint the picture and give his people hope, the people will follow him there. And see, that's one of the things we find out in SWAT meetings. One of the assignments that we give every owner whenever we come in with a SWAT meeting is you have to tell your people what is your vision. What is your vision for the company? And that's my question to you. If you're listening to us today, are you sharing your vision of where it's going? Where are you sharing this? It's one of those things that Al Levy has shared with us of having an organizational chart. So, Brandy, you heard me say this about leaders and managers. What was your thoughts on this?
No, I agree 100%. And I had a thought when Chuck put that up. I had a thought to go along with that, but of course it's been a day and I've already forgotten what my thought was because Chuck is also very insightful. But it's also recognizing limitations too. So, for example, I've had Madison up here for almost 4 hours. Now I know Madison well enough to know I can't keep her up here all day with just me because she will go crazy because she needs people. She needs to be around people. She loves to talk to customers. She loves to talk to other people. So if I keep her up here all day with just me, she'll go miserable. So it's also recognizing those limitations as well. We don't have to be the smartest person in the room. We just have to be able to find the smartest people in the room.
Very true, very true. So anyway, Madison, I hope that you make it through the day without, slugging Brandy or whatever. Because we know Madison's sitting over there.
Can you say something, Madison?
I think I know I look like this.
She's representing Copperfield today.
I am.
I don't know if we're supposed to represent vendors on the show.
But no, I mean, she brought me up here. It's been actually it's not been too bad, not yet. It's just been the repetition all day. And like she said, I would like to go downstairs eventually. But I will do what I can for my team always.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you joining in there. And you look fine in the hat, okay?
Fridays, we represent our Chiefs and our players.
So, Cheryl, what about you? What do you think about this comparison or differentiation between the leader and the manager?
I think there has to be. It's hard to be both of them. If you do, you have to totally swing your mind capacity in a different direction because it's kind of like I kind of take it back to the older parenting thing. The mom was the manager. She took the daily things and kept everybody smooth all day long, kept things going. And then the father was the one that oversaw the family and made sure they were intact and took care of them. So it's the same way in business. You've got to have someone out there that can see the whole picture. And then you've got to have someone inside that's capable of seeing each person and their spots where they need to be. They can't see what their future is, but they can see how to mold them to make their future fit into the leader's prospect.
Yeah. And another chapter here that I think is really, really good is, and all these chapters are good, I'm telling you, but the title of it is Don't Wrestle with Pigs. Don't wrestle with pigs. I want you to think about that a minute. Okay. So the question Jonathan asked Mr. Jenkins was, Mr. Jenkins, you tell me to believe in people and let them be who they are. But what do you do when someone is acting like, excuse my French, a bastard? And the answer is, well, Jonathan, that's the hardest thing in the world to do. Sometimes you work with people, you love them, and they disappoint you by doing something that's hurtful or dishonest. The temptation then is to build walls around yourself so you won't ever be hurt again. The hardest thing in the world is to not give up on humanity just because someone has disappointed you. Because if you give up on humanity, if you quit believing in people, you'll end up hurting someone else because of what that one person did to you. And to me, that is a golden nugget for life right there because we see this happen. We're not open to other people's points of view. We're not open to other people's beliefs. And we have to be that way. And Mike's right. I think that's one of the secrets. Brandy and I's friendship is so deep. It's because we have a respect for each other's opinion. No matter how quirky either of us are, Brandy, we always have that respect, don't we?
Yeah, and I'm going to remind you that on this podcast, you used the term old white guy.
Oh, white guy. See, she keeps me straight so you understand. But again, it was a valid point that can be used in teaching. Okay. So, what you thought about that, about, what I just said?
Well, tell me the pig. Tell me the saying again.
Okay. The saying is, don't wrestle with pigs.
I mean, I like it. I love pigs. I want to pot
Because,
belly secretly.
right. But if you wrestle with a pig, you're both going
You're
to
going to
get
get
hurt.
money. Yeah.
It's kind of like one of the quotes that was shared with me with a fallen departed brother many years ago. His name's Roger Sharon. And Brent Cheryl knows how close Roger was to me. And Roger shared with me one day a thought that has hung with me every day. And every time I'm tempted to say something argumentative on social media, I see Roger looking at me. And he said, Jerry, don't ever argue with an idiot. From across the street, nobody can tell who the idiot is.
Yeah, it reminds me, there's an acronym, and of course, it's not coming to my brain right now, but it's something about like, is it necessary? Is it kind? What I think is what Chuck say, you get in the mud and pigs like it. Well, and that's true. They do, and they want to egg you on. And what I think is there's never a reason to get in the mud in the first place. We're all different people. We all have different opinions. We come from different backgrounds. That helps give us our philosophies in life, and we either respect that or we don't. And if we don't, then we don't need to work together, or we don't need to be friends, or we can part ways. So I don't think there's ever a reason to get in the mud in the first place.
Yep, and I agree. Cheryl, what about you? What's your feeling?
Well, my feeling is people are a lot more sensitive now than they used to be.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's
wait a minute. The old white guy saying that here, Brandon.
Extremely a lot more sensitive. And so it's you have to be the bigger person, for lack of a better word. It's arguing gets you nowhere except going around in circles. And so and we say it wrestling with pigs, but we do it every day with somebody. You see a comment. I'm probably less on social media than you are, because I see no sense. I don't argue unless I have to, because that just sets you up for a freewheeling day when you're saying something that you can't take back.
That's it.
So that's it's just stay out of the situation, be the better man, and walk away.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're coming up to the end on today's episode, and I hope that this has been something. So again, here's the book. And if you own a blue-collar home service business, I hope that you will listen to this. Now, here's the thing. Mr. Jenkins is not a Tommy Mello. He's not on social media advising the world, doing all those kind of things. But I also know that guys like Mr. Jenkins is those guys like Tommy Mello look at and what they are learning and how to do. So, Brandy, any words before we close out today's episode?
No, I'm going to go order my book.
Okay, there you go. And be sure and share this with Jeremy, because I'm sure that it'll help him in the wisdom there. Cheryl, what about you?
I enjoyed the book. I got the Kindle version of it, and I thought it was one of the better thought through books, and one written by a man that totally respected Mr. Jenkins and in his theories, because like you say, Mr. Jenkins never did anything actually with the HVAC hands-on, but yet he has trained more and more people, and he is the only service here in Charlotte that works 24 hours a day.
Yeah, they are there. So they do stand by that. And that's one of the things to point out in this book is they were selling maintenance contracts. And Mr. Jenkins asked his CSRs, why are we not selling more service contracts? And the CSRs told him the honest answer. They said, because we are not filling up our part of the bargain. People call in and we're rescheduling our maintenance customers, and we're going after the big kill stuff. And we're not respecting that relationship. And what it told Mr. Jenkins was he had to have more technicians. He had to have more technicians to fill that slot so they could fulfill their mission statement and their customer promise. So do yourself a favor, order a copy of Mr. Jenkins Told Me, and I guarantee you're going to find wisdom in there. It was evident that Mr. Jenkins had read John Maxwell books. He has read Zig Ziglar. It was very evident Mr. Jenkins didn't dream this stuff up. But as I looked through here, I could see how traction applied to that. I could see how 21 laws of leadership applied to this, the laws of teamwork and everything else. So with that, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. And again, it's the beginning of 2023. And on our website, CBC Success Group, there's something we'd like you to have as a gift. And that is your year-end self-analysis form and how you can put together your goals and commitments for the year 2023. And Chuck just put up an interesting thing, Cheryl. To understand people, get this. Contact Cheryl at their address. One of the best things I learned to understand people. Okay. And I think you still remember when you did Chuck's disc. Remember that?
Quite well.
Where you were reading his mind, in the whole 9 yards. But yeah, you've got to know your own strengths, know your own weaknesses. Don't be scared to reach out to people. Don't be scared to ask for advice. Learn from people who are wiser than you. Learn from people that have fallen down, okay? Because what can happen, we can all trip. It's like last week, Brandy, I hadn't shared this story with you, but I'm very lucky I came back from Key West, just to be honest with you. I almost killed myself first day, okay? Because what I did, I was tripped on a sidewalk. And I couldn't regain my balance. And they had these little fences about 18 inches high with little spear ends. And my head is headed straight. I'm envisioning death on this trip. But that's how fast things can strike, okay? You got to have your eyes open. If I'd have had my eyes open and watching that sidewalk, I wouldn't have tripped like I did down there.
I'm going to need you to stay on this call after we end so we can discuss your blood sugar.
This was a simple trip over a brick. So anyway, appreciate you joining us. Reach out to us here at CB Success Group. If you want to make 2023 the year that you obtain what you're looking for, let us know. We may just have the answer for you in your operations, in your systems, in your finances, and the other things. That's what we do. You want to know about hiring and the processes? That lady on here, Cheryl, she's the one that works with you. Randy, what's your training coming up? What's your next training there in Kansas City?
In just 2 weeks, I think it is. January 19th and 20th, Office Management 101. It's a 2-day class covering everything top to bottom from office management, all things HR. Jerry, you and I had a very unique situation, or you really had a situation that you included me in on that was a unique HR situation today that was complicated and one of the first for both of us, I think. And those are the kind of things, though, that we go over in this class because you never know when you're going to have those situations arise and how you're going to deal with them. So yeah, I hope we've got a good class so far, and I think it'll be fun.
It was a very unique problem. So you would agree when I got hit with that one. And see, that's where the expertise comes in, because a client asked me this question like, Lord of mercy, I've never been hit with this one before. So then I sent a message to Brandy. Hey, Brandy comes up with a link to find it, do some research. It was a really weird one. We can't share it on here, but it was a very unique human resources question that you may face one day.
Case law. You always go look at the case law.
Yeah, the case laws were there. So anyway, reach out to us, and we want to thank you for joining us today for this broadcast of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And